Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back again in our fourth and last day at the ICD's International Conference on the Power of Art and Cultural Diplomacy. We'll kick the day with our first speaker, who's going to talk about becoming a Somaliland one thorn bush at a time. Our speaker, I do believe she's from Germany. She decided to introduce herself, so I'll give the floor to her. Please give a round of applause to Janine Graf.
Yeah, my name is Janine. You heard me about the last couple of days enough times, I guess. I just graduated from an MA in International Conflict Analysis at the University of Kent. So, firstly, sorry for my voice. I'm really ill, so if it's too bad, can't help it. And the other thing is, everything I say is my opinion, so if you have another opinion, I would really like to talk to you about it, like hear your views, what you think. But yeah, I hope I don't step on anyone's toes. So, before I start with my presentation on peace building in Somaliland, I would like to give you some introduction so that you actually know what I am talking about. So, you should know that although Somali people have a shared ethnicity, culture, and religion, they are deeply divided by clan affiliations, which is the most important component of their identity. So the Somali population is divided into 5 major clans, which each consist of numerous subclans, which then join and split in a very fluid process. In contrast, Somaliland has a comparatively homogeneous population, as the majority of its population come from only 3 main clan families. So, based on this kinship and slightly differing colonial history and some shared historical experiences, the Somalilanders have developed a sense of identity which is very distinct from the rest of the Somalis and which is an important element of their peace-building success. To give you some historical background, in case you don't know, in 1991, civil war broke out in Somalia, which then led to the ouster of Siad Barre's dictatorship through a coalition of clan-based opposition groups. Since then, Somaliland, which is the northwestern slice of Somalia, has declared independence in 1991 and has since established one of the most democratic and stable political systems in the entire Horn of Africa. In contrast, in Somalia, fighting continued, and until recently, the country has been unable to retain a central administration. So first to the failure of peace-building in Somalia. Peace-building operations, to give you an idea what peace-building is about, they seek to prevent the resumption or the escalation of violent conflict. And they want to establish a durable peace by addressing the underlying sources of the conflict. In Somalia, these peace-building operations did not only fail to establish a legitimate and functioning government, but even to end the conflict in the first place. And this was because the entire process prioritized the establishment of state institutions and thus neglected conflict resolution, or most importantly, reconciliation. I would even go as far as say that the entire peace-building process was driven by the international community's agenda to install a Western-style government which lacked local ownership and participation, and most crucially, consent. This is especially evident in the continued attempts of the international community to build a centralized state, although such a state is seen by most Somalis as a coercive instrument due to the history of Siad Barre's dictatorship. So they receive such a state with deep distrust or even opposition. You can also see it in the continued support of narrow coalitions of clans or factions which have no legitimacy and which then marginalize the opposition rather than actually building governments of national unity. So now to the success of peace building in Somaliland. Somaliland incorporated traditional Somali forms of governance and used traditional peace-building methods and has thus managed to construct a functioning government from the bottom up on its own and with little outside assistance. So it has not yet been recognized by the international community, although it has many of the attributes of a state. It has a constitution, it has a functioning parliament, it has a police force, a judiciary, everything we have, it has. It successfully demobilized its militias and incorporated them into a national army. It cleared mines, it repatriated refugees, it rebuilt its infrastructure, and it established modern airports, hospitals, and universities. So this remarkable process of this bottom-up peace building was made possible through three elements. For me, those were, first of all, the role of the clan elders as peacemakers, a unique hybrid government, and the country's international isolation. So, clan elders, who are they? They are chosen by their clans because they have specific personal attributes that make them stand out. They have expertise in compromise and persuasion, or they are very courageous. And these clan elders held an immeasurable amount of power and influence in the Somali society. And this power is given to them by the clans, who have transferred it onto them in order to manage their affairs. The highest level of level council of the clan elders is a Goti, which is convened on an ad hoc basis and uses traditional peacemaking efforts to resolve conflicts between the clans and to restore trust and harmonious relationships. The essential role in peace building also played a traditional community meeting, which is called Shibili. I hope I said it correctly, which is open to all adult males. It has been vital for reconciliation purposes and also because it involved large-scale participation and thus was able to reach a consensus on a future form of government with the entire society. So, during such a conference, the clan elders would follow their own traditional approach to mediation. So, they would focus on developing trust, which is essential for the negotiation. And this traditional approach was guided by a Somali proverb I have written here: if you want to dismantle a hedge, remove one thorn bush at a time. The second element that I think made this peace building process so remarkable is the hybrid government that Somaliland established, which is called the Beel system. It has managed to fuse sort of Western-style institutions of government, like we know them, with its own traditional forms of social and political organization. So it incorporated the Goti, the Council of Elders, into the legislative, which then comprised a bicameral parliament with an upper house of elders, the Goti, and a house of representatives. The elders were given the responsibility to select a president and for ensuring state security by managing the internal affairs. So they formally recognized the stabilizing influence of the elders. So, according to a scholar named Richards, the inclusion of the traditional was vital for the successful implementation of the modern, as it established a peaceful environment in which a new form of governance could be introduced. This allowed the Somali population to identify with the new state structure and get accustomed to this democratic governance, which they never knew before. And it helped this government and the entire society to achieve a greater cohesion and legitimacy. The third point I would like to mention is the international isolation. Because Somaliland has not been internationally recognized, it did not qualify for bilateral aid or got support from any international financial institutions. Because of this, they received only meager assistance in terms of finance or anything else. So because of this, the peace-building process has largely been achieved from the assets and the resourcefulness of the Somalilanders themselves. and which then forced the country to become way more self-reliant than many other African states. I gotta be honest, of course Somaliland's development would have been aided by greater financial resources, political encouragement, and technical advice. But the country, in my opinion, and the opinion of many scholars, ultimately benefited from this lack of external involvement, as it allowed the development of a unique indigenous model of African government, a system in which the public feels that it has a strong stake together with a robust sense of national identity and patriotic pride. So, to conclude, I would like to mention Kaplan, a scholar who has written extensively on Somalia and Somaliland. The success of Somaliland's society-led, bottom-up process of democratization stands in sharp contrast to the repeated failure of international attempts to construct a Western-style state in the west of Somalia, and calls into question the fundamental assumptions underlying the top-down unitary state-building exercises so commonly attempted in fragile states. I don't know what you think, but for me, the story of Somaliland is very inspiring, and it's a story that the Western community should look at and that it should learn from.